Hi there, welcome LinkedIn, and for those of you who are now watching on our brand new YouTube channel, a big welcome to the Biz Live. This is episode number 3, sponsored by DCW Group. Welcome.
Good morning.
Okay, welcome Sarah, and Sarah is our co-producer on the Biz Live. Hello there, Sarah, how are you doing?
Good morning, good morning. I am good. It's nice to see some blue skies, someone's mentioned on the chat.
It is. I've just come back from a 3-day holiday in the lovely world of Cornwall, and it was beautiful, lovely topaz coloured sea, and I feel rested after 3 days. It feels great. So just a big shout out from the very top to Dean, who I know's chiming in. This is the 3rd episode that he's sponsored. Dean is the principal of DCW Group, and about 4 weeks ago when we had our pilot episode with General Sir Peter Wall, we've now had thousands of views of that on LinkedIn, which is great. Dean sponsored the whole season, and he sponsored the pilot as well. So that was the day of the launch of his company, and he's done an enormous amount of business. So congratulations, Dean, and thank you for sponsoring season 1. So our guest today is Roger Proctor MBE. He probably won't like me saying this, but I consider him to be not only a business guru, but a design guru. He is an expert when it comes to branding, marketing, and communication. Also, I'd like to invite you, please, to introduce yourself into the chat. Evo is part of the Biz Live is part of Evo networking, and we've got groups around Wales and the southwest of England. So we're, very much networking is part of what we do. So without further ado, quickly, before we welcome our very special guest, Roger Proctor MBE, and if you've got a question for Roger, please do pop it in the comments. Our co-producer, very, very experienced TV producer and executive, and now working on the Biz Live as a co-host. It's Sarah Brooks. Tell us about what our theme is for today, please.
Yes, Jamie, our theme today, as you sort of alluded to there, is modern marketing, which in many ways is an intriguing area. We live in a dramatically changing environment in terms of marketing, don't we, at the moment? But of course, the question is, how does all this work in a global pandemic? We've got lots of technologies and strategies to help us, but all our best laid plans are now having to adapt due to where we find ourselves, our current situation. So I'm looking forward to hearing Roger's thoughts on all of that and helping point us in the right direction.
Great. And tell us about the talking point, if you will.
So our talking point today is, what is your marketing mantra? What marketing methodology do you absolutely swear by? Who do you consider to be a marketing genius? So please pop it on the chat, your thoughts about that, and we will try and give you some feedback. And obviously, any questions for Roger, please pop them down there and we'll try and feed them into the programme.
That's great. And without further ado, your virtual grand piano there is now disappearing. So when you go off camera, please do shut your windows on your luxury Aspen apartment, or whatever you've got going on there. Just happened last week. We always rehearse and plan on grey days, which if you're outside of the United Kingdom is pretty standard for the autumn and winter. So please do introduce yourself into the chat. Sarah is going to be moderating, responding to as many questions as you can. And do remember, our theme is modern marketing. Let's stay on track, and also our talking point. So please do share some points. It's a great way to network, actually, because we do have people. We've got people from the Middle East usually. We've got people from India, and obviously a number of our members from Evo are also taking part. We call this an interactive business show. I'm also extremely pleased to say that next week's episode, which will be the 4th one and technically our 5th episode, can you believe it? We made it to the end of season 1 pretty much, is going to be another guru. And this time it's Martin Roberts. He has presented 28 seasons, going back to 2003, I think it is, of BBC One's network show. That's a network in the UK, if you're outside of Britain, of Homes Under the Hammer. He's been the presenter of that show. So he's a property expert. So I'm sure you don't have to think too much about what our theme is going to be next week. So if you're interested in property, if you're interested in the property business and development, in commercial property, indeed investing in property, or you'd just like to find out if the value of your house is going to go up or down, because he has got the crystal ball, let me tell you that. And he's also a survivor from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which is the network ITV1 kind of reality stroke game show. So he will be beaming in live next week. So we've got Martin Roberts, the presenter of Homes Under the Hammer for the last, Lord only knows, many, many years. So we're really pleased to announce that today as well. You heard it here first. Okay, so Sarah, thank you for introducing. Thank you for moderating. Now, please go moderate. Bring in some comments, find some wonderful questions for Roger, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes' time. Please do introduce yourself into the chat. I'm going to say a fond farewell to Sarah. Goodbye, Sarah. Good stuff. And let's see what's coming in on the comments. Oh my gosh, 50 comments already. Greg Cooper is there. Greg is an international LinkedIn expert. Really good to see you there, Greg. Thank you so much for chiming in. And can I just say, I was enjoying your first live broadcast with your fellow in Southwest, with your fellow expert, not fella, your fellow Southwest Australian expert just an hour ago, Anna. Very, very useful live broadcast there, and congratulations to yourself and also to Anna, who seems to also have the LinkedIn Live accreditation, which is brilliant. Good to see you, Greg. And there is Mark Nutter watching from Dubai. Hello there, Mark. Mark is an entrepreneur of note and built a number of successful businesses, particularly one in the UK, which he exited from about 5 years ago. Lovely to see you here, Mark, and a very special Biz Live welcome. And there's Don Melrose as well, Ian Porter, a former mayor, Paul Harris, brilliant. I've got a special announcement just before we introduce Roger Proctor, who is both a businessman as well as an entrepreneur and an expert. I'm very pleased to say that our first ever guest on the show just 3 weeks ago was a certain expert on entrepreneurship, known as the entrepreneur's godmother. That was Alison Edgar. And I'm really pleased to say that on a Saturday, she was made an MBE. So she was given an Empire Medal by Her Majesty the Queen for services to entrepreneurship. So can we just give her our first ever guest? I think we backed the right horse there. A virtual round of applause if you're chiming in there, Alison. I know you often watch. Please do leave a comment. A huge, huge congratulations from myself, Sarah, and everybody here at Evo and the Biz Live show. Thank you so much for supporting our very first event. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our very special guest today. He has also got the MBE, so that's 3 MBEs on the row. It was Rob Law MBE, the creator of the Trunky last week, and I do encourage you to have a look back at that episode. I'm sure Sarah or I will post that straight after the show. Rob was talking very passionately about not having had a holiday when he started his business for 5 years. He talked about living from birth with cystic fibrosis, and very movingly shared, I think, pretty much for the first or second time, that he lost his twin sister at the age of 16. And a lot of what he does is driving forwards to commemorate her memory, if that's the right parlance. And also, you know, the adversity of trying to weather through the current storm, because it's effectively with the Trunky, which is ride-on children's luggage, is currently, I guess he's in the toy business and the travel industry as well, 2 things which are obviously affected to a degree by COVID. Okay, so please stick around. Please introduce yourself into the chat. Big shout out to our sponsor, Dean Ward of DCW Group. You are now watching the Biz Live. Hello there, Roger Proctor MBE. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Nice to see you, Jamie.
Excellent. Well, according to my visuals, I seem to have frozen, and I'm back in again. Can you hear me okay there, Roger?
Yeah, no, I can hear you fine.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. And as I said, you are our 3rd recipient of an MBE in a row, and we'll come to that later on, because I'm always intrigued about, you know, what you have to do to be given a medal by Her Majesty the Queen. And flippancy aside, you know, congratulations on that, of course. And I wanted to talk to you for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then invite our people who are taking part today to ask some questions, if that's all right. I've also got a bit of Mac envy, because you have an incredibly clear image, which is much better than my Mac image. And I know we're using the same computer. I understand you have a tech support in alongside in case something goes wrong, which is something which I'm very jealous of as well. One day when I grow up, the Biz Live will have a tech support hanging around in the background as well. Okay, so Roger, I just would like to talk to you briefly about, you know, maybe look at your past, present, and future. Now, if you don't mind me saying, you are based in the southwest. In fact, you're in Bristol. We have a common heritage, I would say. We both went to what has now become the University of the West of England, and weirdly, still, we both studied graphic design. You were there in the 1970s, is that right?
Yeah, 1976 to 79.
So, what, obvious question to ask, but what was the thing which drew you initially to communications, branding, and design?
Well, I, like most people who went off to art college, did their foundation year. We have a system in the UK where you do a foundation year and we try everything. And like most people who did that, I wanted to be a fine artist. And I just happened to be talking to a lecturer one day, and he asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I think I was going to do fine art at Brighton. And he said, do graphic design. And so obviously what he recognized in me that one, I was never going to be a great artist, but I had a penchant for design, and so that's what I did. And I came up to Bristol, did my degree, and then finished that degree in 1979, and sort of launched myself into the world, which at that time was, many people won't remember, but it was called just after what was called the Winter of Discontent, when basically it seemed that Britain stopped working for about 4 or 5 months because everybody was on strike. So it was a time where there weren't many jobs around. And so, yeah, I launched the business in the last term of university.
So just like to acknowledge a few of our guests who are joining us today. Taking part is Trevor Walton. Hello there, Trevor. There's Adrian Edmonds as well, and our sponsor, Dean Ward. Good morning. I am on time this time. Well, congratulations on the growth of your business. Perhaps you'll tell us about that in the chat. I know it involves several £1 million in a few weeks, so congratulations there, Dean. Okay, so Roger, so you started the business, which is pretty incredible. You initially told that you were being directed towards the more commercial side of design, and as you know, I did graphic design at the very same college, and I always had the feeling this was a bit like choosing a law course. If you were going to do something involving a chance to make some potentially good money early on, it was the more commercial side of things is graphic design as opposed to ceramics or fine art. Now, of course, those who achieve great heights can actually make an awful lot of money and a really substantial living. But it's interesting how you pivoted from fine art towards graphic design. I want to jump forward a little bit, still staying in your past, if that's right. What was in the early days, what was the epiphany? Was there a particular business deal? I know there's a few people in the chat there who had one substantial deal where everything changed and it suddenly became a business of note. Is there a sort of a particular epiphany in business for you?
Yeah, there was actually. I mean, that was really in the first year. I met 3 guys actually. A guy called Ian Barron, Dick Petritz, and Paul Schroeder. And Ian Barron, they were 2 Americans and 1 Brit, and Ian Barron had developed the concept of parallel processing, and basically this allowed chips rather than if you want to make a computer more powerful, it used to be that you would have you would increase the number of chips, and but there would be a loss. If you had 10 chips. 10 times more chips, it wouldn't be 10 times more powerful. There'd be a loss of power between each addition, if you like. And through miniaturization, etc., he developed this processor called the transputer, and IMMOS was set up and funded actually by the UK government through the National Enterprise Board to develop this new technology, this new parallel processing. And I got him right in at the sort of the bottom of the ladder, if you like, putting together all the sort of presentations and the collateral around getting these the first 50 million from the government, and then actually ended up in 160 million. So I have to say that I didn't really, if I'd known exactly what I was doing and the responsibilities that were involved, I might have been more nervous than I was. But it just involved a huge amount of really hard work and working with some, absolute geniuses actually, who were amazing people, and many of them are still around. And I played a very minor part in sort of developing the brand and developing the communications at a very, literally just straight out of college. And they built the worldwide brand for Inmos over 13 years, and the Transputer, and then the what was called the T9000. So actually an awful lot.
Terminator.
Yeah, well, what actually is so much of what has gone on in development of chip technology around the world is actually, a lot of it is influenced by what Inmos were doing, and they are a homegrown, should be far more famous as a name than they are, but they're becoming more famous.
What about sort of as an early development? What about a challenge? I mean, it's always good. I always find I learn from when people share a significant challenge and how they overcame it. I mean, I'm looking at these cue cards. I haven't actually got any questions on them. It's just a thing to hold in my hand. I'll hold a pen instead. Or maybe my nice new branded. Do you like that? The Biz Live cups. There's 4 of them in case we ever have 4 guests in the studio. Lord only knows if that will happen. We shall see. So tell me about a big challenge in your business and how you overcame it, if that's all right.
Oh God, there's been so many challenges. I think the biggest challenge in business is actually, and I'm talking sort of generally here, is actually having the right teams, getting the right people. Because at the end of the day, there's so much, as our business has grown and expanded. I mean, there are things that go on that I have no idea about. For me, it's all about, at the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's about having the right people. Yes, it's the right skills, but it's also the right attitude. And I have to say that over the years, I've made plenty of mistakes, serious mistakes in the whole recruitment process. But actually getting the right people is just hugely important, because it's such a complicated industry, it's such a complicated world these days. And we are working across multiple industries, multiple client bases. So you end up knowing a bit about a lot of things, which is also part of the fun of it, because you meet some amazing people doing amazing stuff.
What about take us back to the point where you received that sort of notification about your MBE, and for those of you who don't know, could you explain what an MBE actually is, what it stands for?
Well, it's actually technically, MBE stands for Member of the British Empire, but it's actually what it is a kind of award, public recognition, if you like, for people who have contributed in some way, special way, to their profession, society, to the community, or whatever. My MBE was for design, but it was also actually around design education as well. So I set up and was chair of something called Design Southwest, and I had been part of setting up the West of England Design Forum, and we were engaged with universities and colleges all throughout the southwest of the UK to get students and colleges more linked up, if you like, with the industry that we're going to go into, and sort of create that engagement which would arm the students in a better way or than they might have been otherwise.
Obviously, I'm mindful we've got lots of questions coming in, Roger, but there's 2 real big things I think everyone would like to get a handle on. I'm sorry to spring this on you. We've literally not scripted or even talked about what we're going to talk about, apart from the past, present, and future. And talk about the future. Is there a chance, you set up Proctor's, obviously, it's been going for years, you trade in. Tell us a bit about just before I ask the actual question, you export a lot, don't you? What's the percentage of your business is done abroad? Because you've got I saw you at our Brexit Brexit conversation that we had at the showcase a few years ago. And I remember you questioning Liam Fox. This is another business called Business Showcase Southwest. We did stadium events, and you were there at the launch of it. I remember you having a conversation with Liam Fox, who was then the Secretary of State for International Trade. Obviously, we've got Brexit coming on. We had an announcement from the Prime Minister last night. This is in the UK about further restrictions because of the COVID crisis. What's your kind of current view on the crisis and how businesses could sort of get through this challenge, and has it impacted you? Lots of questions there.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, we live in unusual times, and I think when the lockdown first happened in the UK, we very quickly came back with a very defined sort of business strategy, if you like, which everybody was started to work to immediately. And it was really all about, well, one is, about communication, keeping close to your clients, because what you've got to remember is that your clients, if you don't know what's going on, you're sure as hell your clients don't know what's going on. And so it was something that was very, which meant that, so clients couldn't operate in the way that they'd done before. So for instance, if we were talking about big tech companies, they weren't going to, for instance, shows, they weren't going to be holding seminars, they wouldn't be doing all the sorts of things that they would normally do. So it was just basically driving it all online. And so we had a very strong new initiatives program. So we really ramped that up. We already had it in existence, but we ramped it up very fast. So the first thing to do was just take lots and lots of new ideas to the clients. So how do they operate in this world? Now, 80% of it they didn't take up, but it was the sort of the 10, the 20%. So that they did take up. So what we found was that we were actually, although the budgets might be shrinking, we were actually managing to maintain budgets in a lot of cases, and in fact increase budgets, because we were, if you like, stealing it from other areas. And I think the other thing is, the mantra across, even in these times as any other times, is just thinking about the customer journey. What is the customer journey? If you really think about your client's customer journey from beginning to end, from where they don't even know who their potential customers are, through to a satisfied customer is coming back and back again. If you think of all those different touch points in whatever reality world that they're in, if you see what I mean, it seems to me that actually gives you pretty good guidance as to what it is you should be doing. And so for us, this is it's a continuous process. We moved from senior management team meetings from once a month to once a week. We keep a finger on the pulse of absolutely everything, and we're just it's constant, it's relentless, but it's the way to be. It seems to me at the moment that's what you have to do.
So it's a combination. It's like a double whammy of Brexit and obviously the COVID crisis.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to, given the news that we had last night on further restrictions, particularly in the north and northwest of England, not quite yet in the southwest, where both we are based, Sarah's based, and probably the majority of our those taking part today, could I dare to ask you to look into a crystal ball? You've been running a business solidly since 1979 without interruption. You've been through lots of different changes, recessions, crises. Is there some sort of advice you could offer us, or maybe look into a crystal ball and give us your analysis of where we'll be in 6 months' time in the business world?
God. Well, it's a pretty difficult question to answer. I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I mean, we could see a change in US president, which would change the whole relationship moving forward in terms of the UK and Brexit, presumably. We could, are we going to get a deal over Brexit or not? Who knows? I don't know. We export 75% of what we do. Some of it, quite a lot of it, into Europe, but we also operate in North America and Middle East and Far East, as well as obviously the UK. But who knows? And you can speculate till the cows come home, really, on what the world's going to be like. But the thing that I'm always telling people here is just focus on our own world. None of us know what is around the corner, and goodness knows none of us knew about coronavirus. So it's actually, and I think it helps your sanity as well if you focus just on your own world and what you're making of your own world. And because at the end of the day, the more innovation that you can deliver to your clients, the more new ideas, the more understanding, the more data analysis of that data, continuous improvement. That's what's going to win through at the end of the day. And it's just turn the volume up on all of those things now, far more. Where we could sit back and relax a bit more before, we just can't at the moment. And with designers and people around designers, as in many other industries, it's about ideas at the end of the day, and just keeping those ideas flowing and out there and communicating them. It makes you a partner. It makes you actually a proper partner with your clients, rather than just a receiver of orders. Receivers of orders are going to die. It's actually about creating those orders, it's making those orders.
So I've got one last question from the house, as it were, and please do remember, everyone, please do pop your questions there for Roger into the chat, and we will get to those in the next couple of minutes. If you've got a question regarding marketing, communications, brand, design, or indeed running a business, as Roger has consistently done since 1979, then please do pop it in the chat. And please introduce yourself. We will do our very best in the next 20 minutes to get to your question and ask it live. So last question from me, if that's okay, Roger. We had 5 weeks ago, we had the pilot with General Sir Peter Wall, and he was, until fairly recently, the head of the army, or the chief of the general staff, and also before that, the commander-in-chief of land forces. Now he is the CEO of Amicus. And he was talking, our theme was about resilience. Of course, he has, having led people into battle, he is an expert when it comes to resilience. I think we are facing, some real challenges with this double whammy. And I wondered if you were to offer some advice to those taking part and those watching. I should also say we've had thousands of views on LinkedIn now with that episode, with that pilot episode. So the majority of people actually take part and watch over the next week or two. Pleased to say that, we're in the thousands of viewers now, which is great. So when it comes to resilience, what sort of advice could you offer us? And particularly those who are dialed in, who have an element of marketing or marketing and communications as their business. I know for a fact that emails tend not to be so effective as they used to be even a year and a half ago. I would say there's much less attention paid to emails. So what do you think, that's part number one. And then next one, finally, what do you think is the future of marketing? What's the next big thing for reaching out to potential customers or prospects?
I think marketing is all about, it's sort of multi-platform activity. I mean, I think there's no one silver bullet, if you like. It's about, for me, it's all about sort of analysis and refinement. At the end of the day, it's not just firing it off and then just hoping for the best. It's actually about, yes, it's about a strategy, but it's about measurement. It's about looking at the results, making it better. Now, for me, moving it forward, it's just more of that. At the end of the day, yes, it's about ideas, and it's about new concepts, and it's about new technologies, new ways of doing things. But there's so much noise out there. What you really have to do is understand the numbers and analyze and refine, make it better, see what's working, what's not working not as well, and how you can make it better, and treat it as an incremental job. And if any of your clients think that it is that sort of fire once and let it go, and just see
spray and pray.
Sorry? spray and pray. It's just not. That's just not it. It's just not it. And it's, you know, in some ways, it's just not that sexy. We tend to work in business to business, and so it's not consumer, and so perhaps we can kind of get away with the sort of dialogue we have with our clients around data and analysis and refinement and so forth. But you know, it's definitely not spray and pray. Certainly not anymore, because people don't have the budgets for it. People don't have the budgets for it, and they won't have the budgets for it. So, you know, if that's your strategy, spray and pray, just forget it. It's just not going to happen.
And just going back to my earlier quite convoluted question about resilience, going back to Sir Peter's sort of theme, is there, to wrap up our house conversation, as it were, is there a bit of advice from all these years in the trenches of business, particularly in communications, design, marketing, etc., about staying resilient as we, to do that hand gesture Boris keeps doing, staying resilient as we push through the next 6 months potentially of maybe lockdowns, part-down lockdowns, and of course Brexit, the B word?
Yeah, I mean, it's resilience is it's an interesting word, and I think it's very true. At the end of the day, you know, not only have you got to be resilient in yourself, but you also got to lead other people. And, you know, you got to be a purveyor of hope. At the end of the day, people need leaders who are going to be realistic with them, people they can trust, who offer, in some cases, stability, but other cases, it might not be that stable. But in that whole mix has got to be hope. You've got to be a purveyor of hope. You've got to give them a vision of how good this can be, but also be realistic with people. Tell them the problems. Tell them, be honest about the kinds of challenges that they're going to face. But at the end of the day, it's giving them, sort of painting the picture of the sunny uplands, if you like, of what it can be like, what it will be like if we, you know, do things right and we support each other, and and we're in there with the ideas.
I want to end our section with a bit of good news. So just very briefly, can I ask you for the happiest moment, the biggest success in business, the biggest deal you've landed? What was it, and what happened?
God. That's a hell of a question. I think there is actually, do you know, there's no one answer. I can't give one answer. Every time you win a pitch, or every time you there's all these little, these little triumphs that we all know there are problems, small problems, big problems you have along the way, but it's actually these little triumphs, and sometimes they're big triumphs where you've won a pitch against the odds, where you've really punched above your weight, and they've been, over the last 40 years, they've been on multiple different occasions in different countries, different industries, so it's hard to pick out one. But I think, you know, the most fantastic thing is when you see the people who've worked on that pitch and the sheer pleasure they get out of it, and the success, and being able to share in their success actually is really good fun, and it's their success, you know. I mean, they are the team that have brought it in, and it's just such fun being around them when they've triumphed, if you like.
Thank you, Roger. Well, look, I've just had a private message from John Gower, who up until a couple of years ago was the head of Future Publishing. I'm really pleased to say Future Plus. It was based in San Francisco, so I don't know where in the world he is today, but he's enjoying the show. He said, "Well done, mate. It's going very well." So coming from John Gower, the former boss of Future Publishing, one of the biggest publishers in the world, it's really nice to have that DM, and thanks for watching, John Gower. No doubt he's going off to bag a new client, but he works broadly in communications now as well. So look, you are watching the Biz Live. I'm your host, Jamie Breeze. The co-producer is Sarah Brooks, and our special guest today is Roger Proctor MBE, the communications, branding, design, and shall we say communications guru. I want to give you that appellation today. Please stick around, because we're now coming to the Q&A section of the Biz Live, sponsored by DCW Group. Okay, so now, Sarah, you have been diligently commenting, moderating, and being all-round co-hosterage. Tell us, what sort of questions have you got for Roger?
Well, I just wanted to sort of check in really with where we're at with everything that Roger said. Lots and lots of interesting things that I just want to pick out. I mean, the pertinent thing I felt was this idea of focusing on your own world. I mean, it's easy to get sort of overwhelmed by everything and looking at the news and wondering where you are within it, but to just focus on what you're trying to achieve. And of course, Roger was talking about the continuous improvement of all areas of what you do and keeping those ideas flowing, and keeping yourself out there, yourself a partner to people rather than someone who's kind of just sort of paddling to keep afloat. You know, just keep those ideas flowing. And also looking at your customer journey and thinking through all the touch points, that marketing, a little bit of jargon there, the marketing touch points, and using it to inform how you respond and the actions that you then take. And I love what he said about being honest. Be honest, but be a purveyor of hope. And as we try to be on this program, be really positive about the future. And of course, there are opportunities out there for everybody. And it's a case of just kind of working out what they are for your particular business. So I want to go to a question from Emily Maggs, who asks Roger, what advice would you give to someone who is planning to start a career in marketing?
Well, I'm assuming, Emily, that you've actually been to, you've studied marketing, or you want to study marketing. I mean, there are various, obviously, the options of university and college and so forth, and there's also various different courses that you can do online, which are pretty rigorous and pretty extensive. In terms of getting a job, I think it's actually about building relationships. I mean, people who just send the CVs out and just sort of, again, it's spray. I come back to that expression, spray and pray. You know, it's actually about getting into the local networks that are around you, meeting people, building relationships with people, getting those odd weeks of experience in a business. Just to build those relationships. That's really the way I would do it, because at the end of the day, we've moved into a world where it's going to be a lot more difficult to get those jobs and get those opportunities. So it's all going to be about relationships. You know, we were looking at a year ago, if we were to take a situation, say a year ago, where we were looking for people, it was actually really difficult to try and find people, particularly if you were in digital and development and so forth. Now, as soon as you send out a job, job spec, it's just dozens and dozens, hundreds of people are looking. And so to me, you have to cut through all that noise, and that is by meeting people, by relationships. So find out the local networks, find out what's going on, and become part of it.
Thank you very much indeed, Roger. Okay, I have to say, I also noticed we've been refreshingly, and I'm broadly in marketing as well now, jargon-free, the spray and pray. Someone said to me, I do brand activation. I still don't know what that means, Roger. I don't know if anyone ever does, but we're jargon-free today, and it's lovely. Okay, over to you, Sarah. Next question, please. Keep the questions coming in as well, please.
So from Martin Lax, what are the top 3, very specific, proactive marketing strategies for a new business to generate sales?
Well, I think it depends on the industry, the sector, so I'm just being very general here. I think it's about being very clear about what it is that you're offering. What do you actually stand for? If you don't know what those things are, whether it be a product or or whether it's a service, you have to really focus on that. And people can only remember sort of 1 to 3 things about you, probably actually just one thing. So be very clear about what that is. I think the next thing is about, so that's about what you stand for, and then what's your brand? You know, what is it that that's going to make you stand out in terms of your positioning, and then actually make sure you identify your channels to market very, very clearly. Depends on your audience, depends on what you're selling, what your service is, but really work out your best channels to use, and then work out how to do that. Now, I mean, that's a really broad answer, but that's because it's a very broad question. But work out first and foremost what it is that you have to offer, and be very, very clear about it.
Okay, that's great. Just put up some various messages. There's Ross Coombs there. Thank you very much indeed for your comments. And Blue Sky indeed, certainly in the UK. And there's the aforementioned John Gower dialect.
By the way, I've just noticed that I've got my poster behind which says "than no," and just so you can see it, it says "say yes more than no."
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yes, just more no's. We'll have more no's.
Just say yes more than no.
Thank you for that. Excellent. So, Sarah, we've got time for a few more questions, and over to you. Let's have more questions, please, everyone.
I'm just sort of placing a few queries here. What is the best and worst thing about running your business, Roger?
The best is, I go back to the team and those successes. That's the best thing. It's really exciting. It's more about that than it is about the money, actually. The money sort of, hopefully, if you're getting it right and you're enjoying yourself, that follows. The worst thing, again, it's about the people. It's worrying about the people. You know, sometimes you go through bad periods, and I think if you're hopefully as an employer, you have the best interests of your people at heart. And because if you have the best interests of your people at heart, they'll have your best interests at heart. And obviously, when you have tough times and you're worried about the future or cash flow or whatever, it's actually what's the effect that you're going to have on your people, because you're the one who's going to have to make the difficult decisions. And you just try and avoid having to make the difficult decisions as much as you can, I suppose.
Roger and Sarah, I've got a question here from AD Edmonds, if that's all right. Are there any new marketing strategies or tactics that fit our new world, or any to avoid? Well,
events aren't going to happen, so that's one to avoid. In terms of marketing strategies, again, I just come back to the real fundamentals of the customer journey. If you understand your client's customer journey, then you will be able to work out the ways that you're going to best communicate with them. And for me, that comes down to data and analytics. Data and analytics and results, they will generate those new ideas through proper analysis of them. And it's just relentless. That's what you've got to do. I train as a graphic designer. I love design. I love the design, the fact that design makes things look great. They create a better world. All of these things, but more and more, it's about the application of data to that and analytics to that is really going to win through. Because at the end of the day, people need to know it's working. They need to know it's going to work, and they need to see it working. And that's how you do it.
Sarah.
Yes, so we've got a question here. On reflection, what was the tipping point that won a pitch that you had thought was gone? And what was the tipping point in a pitch that you thought was a slam dunk and didn't come off?
Right. I think you can go into pitches and you can become a bit of a machine. It's a performance. But at the end of the day, I think people want to see something of you. They want to know the team. They want to know that they're dealing with real people. And so passion and endeavor and passion, I would say. That's where it's tipped it over, and actually to look like you're enjoying it. I mean, so often people go into pitches and it's they're not a natural performance and they feel quite intimidated. But I think you need to try and get over that. And actually, even by having those personal moments where you say, you know, actually, I'm pitching to you, I'm really nervous. It's about being honest with people. And I think that can tip it over into success. The second part of the question, I can't quite remember what the second part of the question was, actually. Right. So I thought it was a slam dunk and didn't come off.
Yeah.
I think, right, I'm trying to remember, actually. I mean, there are times when you've come out of pitches and you think, God, absolutely got that. Absolutely nailed it. And everybody's nodding, everybody's seemingly saying yes. And I think where you got it wrong, you find out later on, is we all tend to respond to the people who are nodding and smiling at us, but they actually might not be the real decision maker. So it's about, for me, the best tip I've got is go to the person in the room who looks the most miserable, looks like the person is really doesn't like you, and work on them, because you've got everybody else, it looks like, but it's that person that they could be actually the key decision maker. And making sure you actually know who the key decision maker is in that room is always a really useful thing to do.
Thank you, Roger. That's great. Just to throw in, Jamie, a couple of suggestions for marketing geniuses. Jen Jackson has suggested the MD of Trunky and Innocent as the people that she holds in high regard. And Paul Harris has suggested David Evans, MBE, another MBE for you, who and started Grassroots. So there you go.
Is there somebody that you hold in, we've got a few more minutes left, Roger, if that's all right. Is there somebody you hold in particularly high regard, or a competitor or a mentor who has influenced you in the world of marketing? Somebody you not necessarily called a genius, but somebody you hold in very high regard, and why? To be honest with you, Jamie, there isn't actually any one particular person. I mean, I work with some really talented people, and so I suppose I consider them to be, marketing geniuses. But I've tended not to sort of look around too much at marketing geniuses, because and it comes back to this point about focus on your own world. And it seems to me that throughout my career, the whole industry has developed out of all recognition of what it was when I first entered it. And it's constantly changing. I mean, there are people that I've met that I've really have given me great insights, but there's no one that I could say covers it all. And I think it's just an ever developing story. So no, I haven't got any sort of marketing geniuses out there that I sort of avidly follow or whatever. I really haven't, and because it just changes all of the time, and you get new input, new data feeds, new stuff all the time, and as I say, I've got some colleagues who work around me who are just, I consider them to be the geniuses, really. Because they do stuff I don't understand. How many staff do you have? I mean, I know you moved into you reconditioned the Printworks in Bristol about 4 or 5 years ago, wasn't it? You had an amazing launch event, beautiful premises. How many staff have you got now? You're over the 50 point, aren't you?
Yeah, we're 65 of us, and we have operations in the Middle East and North America as well. And I mean, they're obviously very small, but So That's about the size of us, and it's spread across all sorts of different disciplines. Design is the actual graphic designer, which is what I trained as. There's about a dozen, but they're all creative people. We all work in a very creative business, whether you're a programmer, whether you're a writer, whether you're a data analyst. We're all in the creative business.
Good stuff. There's Don Melrose. It's based in Wales. He says, "Hi all. If there are experienced online marketing consultants and coaches on Biz Live this morning, I would welcome a connection on LinkedIn. Thanks, Donald." Yes, Don's a very well regarded business expert and coach. Great to have you on the call, as it were, this interactive show. Well, look, Sarah, is there any last comments or any wrap up from yourself? And then we're going to bid a fond farewell once we wrap up the show. Over to you, Sarah.
Yes, just a couple of things there, just to emphasize or just to restate what Roger was saying there about marketing. Obviously it's a multi-platform activity, and he is very insistent about this fact that it is about analysis and it's about refinement. Yes, you've got strategy, but you need to measure it, and it's improving everything as you go along. So it's about having ideas and developing those ideas, but actually measuring them, but perhaps sometimes gets lost in the mix, I think. Certainly, that's something that seems to be the lesser sort of cousin, if you like, of when people are involved in their marketing activities. But I love what he said. It's about the attitude of your team, making sure that they are, have your mind, and that you trust them, because obviously they're going off and doing things in your name, and also having passion for what you do, and it will shine through. That I think is a good thing to think about on this Tuesday morning.
Well, look, thank you so much, Sarah, for some great moderating questions. Thank you for everyone. We're going to wrap things up. Roger, please do stay in the green room, because we've got a special guest we're going to have a little chat with after the show, but we're going to stay in the studio. And for now, though, for the next couple of minutes, just a fond farewell from myself and everyone who is tuned in, to use anachronistic parlance. Don't even know what those words mean. It's something to do with using words from the past. What are we doing, I wonder? Maybe that should be the talking point in question next week. Are we tuning in? Are we interacting? Is this a show? Is it an event? Is it a broadcast? We don't know, because it's all new. What I can tell you, there's about 2,500 people around the world out of the 675 million active users accounts on LinkedIn who've got this golden ticket, as LinkedIn said to me 3 weeks ago, to be able to stream live. We're right at the cutting edge of a new frontier, and we shall see what happens. So thank you for everyone taking part. Roger, thank you very much indeed, and we will see you in a few minutes' time, myself, Dean and Sarah. You're watching the Biz Live, and my name is Jamie Breeze, and it's sponsored by DCW Group. Okay, Sarah, so just a little wrap up from you and I. Next week, to remind everyone, you are going to be welcoming onto the show, beaming live in through the interweb. It's going to be Martin Roberts, the property guru. He has, I think, 28 seasons of BBC One's network show, Homes Under the Hammer. He's got his finger on the pulse when it comes to the property world. He's an entrepreneur, of course, as well as a well-known TV presenter and a survivor of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And of course, he had a bit of an epiphany on that show. If you watched it a few years ago, you will know what happened, and we'll be talking about that. So we're very much looking forward to Martin coming in. He was taking part in the show last week with the aforementioned Rob Law MBE, the creator of the Trunky. So again, a huge thank you to our sponsor, DCW Group, and of course, a very big thank you to all of you for taking part in the Biz Live. Next week, same time, 11:30 a.m. GMT, if you're watching from elsewhere around the world. If you're a first connection of mine, if you're not, please add me, and then you should get an automatic notification if the algorithms on LinkedIn are working. And we are testing out various aspects of LinkedIn Live for some of the seniors at LinkedIn Live in New York. And that includes the Remind Me button. So if you get a question from me over the interweb saying, click this button to remind me, it is legitimate, and it will send you an automated notification when we go live next week. And that will be our 4th episode, as well as the pilot that we had 5 weeks ago. So do tune in, 11:30 next week. So all is left for me to say is, Sarah, goodbye. And also, do you want to say goodbye? Yeah, I think we're running at a slight time delay again. There's a lag. There's a bit of latency. So thank you so much for moderating. Thank you again to Roger Proctor MBE of Proctors and Stevensons, and thank you very much to you. We will see you next week, 11:30 a.m. GMTV. That's my old show. I keep saying GMTV. GMT. Take care. See you next week. Bye-bye.